Mark, I want to start today with a feeling, a very specific feeling, and I want everyone listening to picture it as we describe it, because the moment you remember the feeling, the whole episode is going to land harder.
Okay, walk us in.
You are in a conversation. A colleague says something, maybe a question, maybe a witty remark, maybe a small challenge to something you said. And in that moment, you freeze. The right English doesn't come. So you say something basic, something flat, something that doesn't do justice to what you actually wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation moves on. You smile politely, pretend everything is fine. The meeting ends, you walk out into the hallway, you head back to your desk, and exactly 10 minutes later, somewhere between the elevator and your office, the perfect English response arrives in your head. Fully formed, sharp, clever, articulate, exactly what you should have said.
And in that moment, you want to physically scream.
Because where was that 10 minutes ago? Why now? Why is your brain producing the brilliant response after the moment has passed instead of during it?
And the painful part is, this happens again and again. Every week, every meeting, every social moment, and every time you walk away feeling like the version of you that arrives 10 minutes too late is the real you, and the version that showed up in the moment was somehow a lesser version, a frozen version, a version that couldn't represent your real intelligence.
And here is what almost no one tells learners. This is not a sign that your English is weak. This is not a sign that you are slow. This is a very specific, very predictable, very documented phenomenon. It even has a name. The French call it l'esprit d'escalier, the wit of the staircase, the brilliant response that arrives as you are walking down the stairs after leaving the conversation.
And it happens to everyone. Native speakers experience it too in their own way. But for non-native speakers, it happens dramatically more often, with dramatically longer delays, because the underlying mechanism is the same one that produces the freeze in the first place. And once you understand it, you can do something about it.
And today, we're going to take this apart completely. We're going to explain the neuroscience of why your perfect response arrives 10 minutes late. We're going to give you the toolkit of time buyer phrases that close the gap in real time. And we're going to show you the 3 bridging techniques that let you stay in the conversation while your retrieval system catches up.
Welcome to Side by Side English Podcasts. I'm Mark.
I'm Sophie. Today is for the B2 or C1 learner who has lived through this hallway moment more times than they can count, who keeps thinking of the perfect English 10 minutes after they needed it, who has been blaming themselves for something that is actually mechanical, not personal. We're going to free you from that pattern.
Stay with us. We have the staircase wit phenomenon explained, the elongated retrieval pathway science, why it happens to advanced learners even more than beginners, the full time buyer phrase toolkit, the 3 real-time bridging techniques, a role play showing the frozen response versus the bridged response, and a word tour with 6 powerful B2 to C1 words.
Quick comment question before we begin. Be honest, when was the last time you thought of the perfect English 10 minutes too late? Drop the situation. We want to see how universal this is.
Okay, let's catch the staircase moment. So, Sophie, let's start with the central science. Why does your brain produce the perfect English 10 minutes after the conversation ended instead of during it?
Okay, so this comes down to something neuroscientists call retrieval pathway timing. Every word, every phrase, every grammatical pattern in your brain has a retrieval pathway, the neural route from intention to articulation. And in your native language, these pathways are short, direct, and extremely fast. You think of an idea, the words are right there, they come out within fractions of a second.
And in your second language?
In your second language, the pathways are longer, slightly elongated, slightly more indirect. The connections between intention and articulation are not as automatic, so the same word takes longer to retrieve. Not enormously longer, sometimes only a fraction of a second longer, but in real-time conversation, where every fraction of a second matters, even a small delay can be the difference between catching the moment and missing it.
And here's the key insight. The brilliant response is not absent in your brain during the conversation. It's there. It's just still in transit, still moving through the elongated pathways, still on its way to articulation. And the conversational moment passes faster than the retrieval can complete.
So, the response that arrives 10 minutes later is not new. It was already being assembled in your brain at the moment of the conversation. It just hadn't finished. And by the time it finished, the moment was over. The brilliant English shows up to a party that already ended.
This is why the feeling is so frustrating, because it feels like your brain produced the response after the moment, but your brain actually produced it during the moment. The production just took longer than the moment allowed.
And this is also why beginners often don't experience this phenomenon as much, because beginners don't have brilliant responses in their brain to begin with. They have basic responses, and basic responses retrieve quickly. They're the cheap pathways, so beginners don't get the staircase wit experience as intensely.
But advanced learners do, because advanced learners have rich, sophisticated, nuanced English in their brain, with more complex pathways, longer retrieval routes, more elaborate constructions, all of which take longer to retrieve. So the staircase wit phenomenon actually increases as your English gets better, which is a cruel irony. The more advanced you become, the more often you experience the perfect response too late frustration.
And once learners understand this, the shame around the moment starts to dissolve because they realize, oh, the brilliant version of me is not a different me. It is the same me, just running on a slightly slower retrieval system, which is biology, not failure.
And here's the part that really matters. The fix is not to make your retrieval speed faster. Retrieval speed improves slowly over years. It's not something you can hack quickly. The fix is to give your retrieval system more time within the conversation itself, to buy seconds without breaking the social flow.
Because if you can buy yourself even 5 extra seconds in real time, your retrieval has a much higher chance of completing while you're still in the conversation instead of completing 10 minutes later in the hallway.
And this is where the time buyer phrases come in. Short, natural, native-sounding phrases that you deploy in the moment of pressure to give your brain extra time to retrieve the real response.
Let's walk through the full toolkit, because almost nobody teaches learners these phrases as a deliberate strategy. They get taught as filler, as stalling words to avoid, when in reality, they're some of the most powerful real-time communication tools in any language.
Yes, the time buyer phrase toolkit. 5 categories, each one designed for a different moment of retrieval pressure.
Category 1, acknowledgement phrases.
These buy you a small amount of time while signaling that you're engaging with what was said. That's a really good point. Interesting question. Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. Let me think about that for a second.
Each one of these takes 2 to 3 seconds to say, and during those seconds, your retrieval system is still working in the background. Your perfect response is moving through the pathways, and by the end of the acknowledgement phrase, the real response is often available.
Category 2, reframing phrases.
These restate the question or the comment, which gives you a few more seconds. So you're asking whether we should focus on X or Y. If I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that, just to make sure I'm with you, the question is about...
And these are wonderful because they not only buy time, they also clarify the conversation. The other person often nods and says, yes, exactly, which is another 2 seconds. And then they sometimes elaborate, which is even more time. By the time they finish, your real response is fully retrieved and ready.
Category 3, stalling with substance phrases.
These add a small amount of real content while buying time. There is a lot in that question. There are a few different angles I could come at this from. Honestly, my first instinct is to say X, but let me think more carefully about it.
And these are powerful because they look like the start of a real response. The listener hears you beginning to engage, they wait, and meanwhile, your real response is finishing its journey through your retrieval system.
Category 4, honest bridge phrases.
These openly name the fact that you need a moment to think, and they sound completely natural in professional English. Let me think. Give me a second. That's worth taking a moment to answer well. I want to give you a thoughtful answer, so let me pause.
And here's the surprising part. These phrases, when delivered with confidence, actually increase your authority because they signal that you take the conversation seriously, that you don't give shallow answers, that you respect the question enough to think before responding, which makes you look more thoughtful, not less competent.
Category 5. Process out loud phrases.
These let you think out loud while you are retrieving. Okay, so the way I see this is, let me work through this with you. I think the key issue here is...
And by saying these phrases, you are buying time while also starting to assemble your real response in real time, which often produces a better answer than if you had silently retrieved the full response and then delivered it, because the act of speaking the early parts helps your brain construct the later parts.
5 categories: acknowledgement, reframing, stalling with substance, honest bridge, process out loud. Practice a few from each category until they feel comfortable in your mouth, so that the next time you feel the staircase moment coming, you have something to deploy instead of freezing.
Let's also talk about the 3 real-time bridging techniques, because the time buyer phrases are the language. The bridging techniques are the strategy of how to use them.
Yes, 3 techniques.
Technique 1. Buy 3 seconds, then commit.
When you feel a question hit you and you sense the freeze coming, deploy a time buyer phrase that gives you 3 to 4 seconds, then commit to what other response is available at that moment, even if it isn't perfect. The commitment is the key, because the alternative, staying frozen, kills the moment entirely.
A 3-second pause with confident delivery is far better than a 15-second silence with visible panic. And 3 seconds is often enough to retrieve the response that would otherwise have arrived 10 minutes too late.
Technique 2. Layer your response.
Start your response with the simplest version of what you want to say, the cheap, easy, fast retrieval version. Then layer additional points as your retrieval system catches up, so your response unfolds. Yes, I think this is important, and actually, the part that really matters to me is, and there's also this dimension I keep coming back to.
And the magic of layering is that you're buying retrieval time mid-response. Your first sentence is easy. Your second sentence is harder. Your third sentence is the nuanced one that would have been impossible to deliver as your opening, but by the time you get to it, your retrieval system has caught up.
This is what skilled native speakers do all the time. They don't deliver fully formed, brilliant responses in one go. They unfold them one layer at a time, letting their retrieval system catch up as they speak. And the result feels like spontaneous brilliance, when in reality, it's strategic unfolding.
Technique 3. Return to the moment.
This is the most powerful one. If you actually do experience the staircase moment and 10 minutes later you have the perfect response, do not just keep it in your head. Bring it back. Send a follow-up message. Mention it in the next meeting. Address it in the hallway when you see the person again.
Hey, I was thinking about what you asked earlier, and I wanted to add quick follow-up on that conversation we had. The more I thought about it,
This rescues the brilliant response from the wasteland of the hallway. It also signals something powerful to the other person, that you are someone who keeps thinking after the conversation ends, which is a trait of serious, thoughtful professionals. And it builds your reputation more, not less, than if you had delivered the perfect response in the moment.
Technique 3. Buy 3 seconds and commit. Layer your response. Return to the moment. Together, they let you operate within the reality of your slightly elongated retrieval system without that reality destroying you.
Okay, let's do a role play. Mark, set the scene.
Yes, the scene is a team meeting. The senior leader turns to our speaker, Aisha, and asks an unexpected question. Aisha, what do you think we should prioritize for the next quarter?
Version 1, the frozen response without bridging.
I think we should focus on growth. Yeah, growth is important.
And listen to that. Aisha had a brilliant, nuanced view of quarterly priorities. She had been thinking about it for weeks, but under sudden retrieval pressure with the senior leader looking at her, her brain froze. The cheap response came out. Growth is important, which is the most basic possible answer, saying nothing, adding no value.
And 10 minutes after the meeting, walking back to her desk, the real response arrives. We should prioritize 3 things in this order. First, customer retention, because our churn rate is the leading indicator of every other metric. Second, integration with the partner ecosystem, which has the highest leverage for new revenue. And third, internal infrastructure work we keep deferring at our peril. And the order matters because each one unblocks the next, which is why I think the order is the real question, not the list itself.
And listen to what just happened. Aisha used a time buyer phrase at the start. That's actually something I've been thinking about a lot. Let me share my framing. I think there are 3 things in tension here, and the order really matters. The first one I'd put forward is customer retention, because our churn rate is the leading indicator of every other metric. The second, and this is the one I keep coming back to, is integration with the partner ecosystem. The leverage there is enormous. And third, the internal infrastructure work we keep deferring. Each one of those unblocks the next, which is why I think the order is the real question, not the list itself.
And listen to what just happened. Aisha used a time buyer phrase at the start. That's actually something I've been thinking about a lot. Let me share my framing. 5 seconds, and during which her retrieval system finished its work. Then she layered her response, starting with the framing, then unfolding each priority, letting her brain catch up as she spoke.
And the result is the brilliant response that would have arrived 10 minutes too late instead arrived during the meeting, with the senior leader watching, with the team listening, with the moment intact.
Same Aisha, same retrieval system, same English level. 2 completely different outcomes created by knowing how to buy time and unfold a response instead of freezing and waiting for the staircase moment.
Word tour?
Word tour.
First word, retrieval. Retrieval is the act of getting something back from storage. In neuroscience, word retrieval is the brain's process of accessing stored vocabulary and producing it as speech. And the speed of retrieval is one of the biggest determiners of real-time fluency.
For example, the brilliant English response that arrives 10 minutes late is the result of slow retrieval, not weak knowledge. Repeat, retrieval.
Retrieval.
Next, elongated. Elongated means stretched out, made longer than usual. We've used the word pathway in earlier episodes, and today we add elongated, because in your second language, the pathways are slightly elongated, which is the technical reason for retrieval delay.
For example, second language retrieval pathways are elongated compared to native language pathways, which is why the brilliant response often arrives after the conversation has ended. Repeat, elongated.
Elongated. Next, to bridge. To bridge means to connect two separated things, to span a gap. The time buyer phrases bridge the gap between the moment a question is asked and the moment your real response is ready.
For example, the whole purpose of time buyer phrases is to bridge the gap between when a question lands and when your real answer can be retrieved. Repeat, bridge.
Bridge. Next, to unfold. To unfold means to gradually reveal, to open up step by step. We unfold a map, we unfold a story, and skilled speakers unfold their responses, layering one idea after another instead of delivering a single, fully formed answer.
For example, skilled English speakers unfold their responses one layer at a time, which gives their retrieval system time to keep up with their speech. Repeat, unfold.
Unfold. Next, pathway. A pathway is a route, a track, a way through something. We've used this word before, but here it specifically refers to the neural routes your brain uses to retrieve words. Each word has its own pathway, and in a second language, those pathways are slightly slower than in your native language.
For example, every word in your English vocabulary has its own retrieval pathway, and the speed of each pathway determines how quickly you can produce that word under real-time pressure. Repeat, pathway.
Pathway. And finally, to deploy. To deploy means to put something into action, to use it strategically in a specific moment. The time buyer phrases are only useful if you can deploy them in real time, under pressure, when the conversation demands them.
For example, practice the time buyer phrases out loud daily so that you can deploy them naturally in real conversations without having to think about them. Repeat, deploy.
Deploy. 6 words today. Retrieval, elongated, bridge, unfold, pathway, and deploy. Every one of these is a real, modern, useful English word that you'll hear in conversations about learning, performance, and communication.
And every one of them is a word that maps directly to the science and the strategies we discussed today.
Sophie, one final takeaway for everyone watching.
That the perfect English response that arrives 10 minutes too late is not a sign that you are slow. It is a sign that your retrieval system is operating slightly slower in your second language than it does in your native language, which is biology, which is true for every bilingual brain on the planet, and which has nothing to do with your intelligence or your competence.
And the fix is not to make your retrieval faster. That is a long-term, slow process. The fix is to give your retrieval system more time within the moment, with time buyer phrases, with bridging techniques, with strategic unfolding of your response.
And once you start doing this, the staircase wit phenomenon starts to decrease, not because your brain got faster, because you finally gave your brain enough time to finish its work while the conversation was still happening. The brilliant version of you who used to show up in the hallway 10 minutes too late now shows up in the meeting, where it belongs.
And the version of you who freezes when senior leaders ask questions, who watches the perfect response form in their head after the meeting ends, who carries the silent frustration of being misunderstood, is not your real ceiling. That version is just you operating without the tools we shared today. Once you have the tools, the brilliant version of you can finally make it to the moments that matter.
Small challenge before we go. For the next 7 days, pick 3 time buyer phrases from today's episode. Just 3. Practice them out loud each morning, 5 times each, until they feel comfortable in your mouth.
And then, in real conversations, when you feel the freeze coming, deploy one of them, just one. Buy yourself 3 to 4 seconds and see what happens. See if your real response shows up in the conversation instead of in the hallway.
Because 7 days of this is enough to feel a real shift. The freezes start to get shorter. The retrieval starts to catch up while you're still in the moment. The staircase wit phenomenon starts to decrease. And the brilliant English that used to arrive too late starts to arrive on time.
Drop a comment after the week. Tell us which 3 time buyer phrases you practiced. Tell us if any moments shifted. Tell us if your perfect response started arriving inside the conversation instead of after it. We want to hear the wins.
Because the moment a learner realizes they can buy real-time space for their retrieval system to finish its work is one of the most empowering moments in language learning. The hallway moment loses its power. The brilliant English starts to live where it belongs, in the conversation, with the people who deserve to hear it.
I'm Mark.
I'm Sophie. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to look at the staircase moment without shame.
Buy the time, unfold the answer. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.